Hello, everyone, and I'm glad that we are officially in our remote learning up until the 30th. I'm glad that we have this time together now. So when we come back to class, we are prepared to continue our research. So today we're learning about cold Arctic biomes. The reason I put a slash here between cold and Arctic is because when we get to that subarctic section, or when we discuss seasons, the the way we describe cold weather can vary. Here, again, we have our pyramid, which we are familiar with. It's in our packet. Today, we're going to be focusing on the upper half of the pyramid where we can see the decreasing temperature. It's quite cold. It's Arctic and subarctic, and we have these two biomes that are specifically fit for the Arctic title, tundra and taiga. Notice the tundra is very flat. We have ice. If you look very closely, you can see some ice on the ground or maybe some melted water. In the taiga, we have we have trees, which look like pine trees or evergreens. Icy mountain in the background. I don't see a lot of sunlight either, or a lot of the blue sky. And we are quite between medium moisture to dry. Here are our definitions. Arctic relates to the region around the North Pole. So if you remember in the previous video, I said if you wanted to look up the definition or use your articles to develop context, you're more than welcome to do that. This is just a general definition. Subarctic also relates to regions around the North Pole, but it might be a little farther out, so near it, but not so close to it where we get no trees. Because as you can see in the diagram, so Arctic, we still have a lot of tall trees. We have more plant life that's apparent. And notice our prefix here, like we learned before with our root words, the prefix sub means under, falls under the category of Arctic. Here are some very basic and general traits of an Arctic biome. It's flat and icy land. So if we look back here, we can see our tundra is very flat, but who's also to say that this forested area, the taiga, is not all flat? Rarely with any plant life, so some Arctic biomes may have shrubs, mosses, and grasses, and this is solely Arctic, not subarctic, Arctic. We saw in our subarctic taiga, there were tall trees. We have snow, ice, glaciers, a few grasslands like we saw in our tundra, very grassy. Very little precipitation, which as we have found out through the hydrologic cycle, very little rain. So it gets like less than 10 inches a year of rain. The average winter season temperature is negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, but during the warm season, it can get up between 37 and 54. And there is only a 50 to 60 days in the year where it's growing season. So, like, we have harvest season here. They only have 50 to 60 days for anything to grow or for animals to come out and reproduce. Here is a picture of an Arctic location. Cold water with icy slush. These big glaciers and icebergs we can see. In the background, we have this rocky mountain. Notice how the ice is kind of layered. We can see these lines show layers of ice that have gathered on top of each other. Now we move into a subarctic category. So the taiga, a type of a subarctic forest with a snowy and moderately seasonal weather. So here in Chicago, we're seasonal. Moderately seasonal means it does occur, but we may not get the same kind of seasons as a taiga. If a taiga is still in the subarctic area, it probably does not have as long of a summer as we do, or a summer at all. But we will find out. Here are some general features. They have pine needle trees, conifer tree species. Remember, we're looking for plants. So here, if you want to start looking for a certain species, you can always look up conifer tree species and find different types of conifer trees or pine needle trees that you can look into. Long winters, as I've just said, probably not the same kind of seasons we get. Moderate to high precipitation. So compared to an Arctic location, Because these taigas tend to be found near oceans or areas where more moisture can come in, that the closer they are to the ocean, they get between 12 and 20 inches per year. If it's shielded by the mountains, it probably gets around the same as any other Arctic location, 11 inches or less per year. The average temperature in the winter is 14 to negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit, very cold. But the summer season is between 68 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit, with a very short growing season, as we said, between 50 and 60 days. They also have more diverse animal life than tundras do. We have hares, which are basically rabbits, large cats, like cats, moose, and reindeer. Here's a picture. We can see that this is probably near where someone lives because there's a fence here and a horse. And horses usually aren't native cold areas, so this one must have been domesticated there. Notice in the background all the snow coming down on very large, very tall trees. Snowy weather. Next, we have the tundra, a treeless, flat environment within the Arctic Circle or around the North Pole. Features, as we said before, bare ground with light plant life, so mosses, shrubs, lichens. Again, this is different kind of plant life. You can always put in Arctic moss. You can find very interesting types of mosses, I'm certain. There is a freeze-thaw cycle, so like where the ground gets frozen, like frozen solid like ice, and the dirt becomes something called permafrost. But then it starts to thaw out during the growing season, and that's when we get some of that plant life. Very low precipitation, less than 15 inches a year. Its winter season is between 4 and negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and between 37 and 54 degrees during the summer. Very short growing season with some diverse life. So you might find some small mammals there. There's an animal called the Arctic fox. You might get some migratory birds, which means the birds fly in, polar bears, and seals. Woo! And here is a picture of the Arctic Circle. Notice that it spreads across Canada, Alaska, Greenland, Iceland is just short of it, and parts of Europe. So here we have that big country, Russia, where there are a lot of taigas. And if we go back to our biome packet, we see that Canada and Russia both have taigas and tundras. So great. So everyone stay happy and healthy. You're always welcome to come back to this video for clarification. If you want to pause on one of these, you're more than welcome to. Stay happy and healthy, and wash your hands